So first off, I'm going to pass it over to Janey, who's going to kick things off by sharing more about the launch of the new Atlas of Ungulate Migration. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen and pass it over to Janey to get us started.
Okay, awesome. Thank you, Alex. Yeah, like she said, my name is Janey, and I work for the Global Initiative on Ungulate Migration, and I'm excited to talk to you a little bit about the atlas that we are building and just launched. Sorry, a little delay. Okay, so a bit of context first. So animal migration, which is one of the most spectacular ecological phenomena that we can observe in the natural world when animals move back and forth between seasonal ranges. This is something that scientists have been studying for a long time. Probably the most iconic migration are the Serengeti wildebeest pictured here, but there are actually many migrations still being discovered and documented today around the world. And we know that migrations are essential to ecosystems, so animals actually enhance the quality of the vegetation on the landscape when they move through different areas. They also provide a prey base for predators. And increasingly, migrations are threatened due to habitat fragmentation, climate change, infrastructure development around the world, but we have a lot of tools to conserve them. And one of these tools is GPS tracking technology, so we can collar animals and then use that technology to monitor where they're moving on the landscape. So we can get GPS points that allows us to see individual migration routes, and then from those we can derive population level corridors. And often this GPS tracking data isn't available for populations on the landscape. So when that happens, we usually don't have a good sense of the scale of these migrations, where animals are moving, what seasonal ranges are really critical for them. So often migrations are being lost or severely truncated before we have a good sense of where they are and before we can do any kind of robust monitoring. And even sometimes when we have this GPS data, it isn't easily accessible or available to people that are making decisions about infrastructure projects, for example, like this railway pictured here. So that's why a few years ago, a group of migration experts and movement ecologists came together to form the Global Initiative on Ungulate Migration. This is a project that's being implemented under the auspices of the UN Convention on Migratory Species. And our main goal is to build an atlas of ungulate migration that encompasses one day all of the migrations around the world and makes this data readily available and publicly accessible to conservation planners. So this atlas is now hosted on CMS's website. We launched it last year in September, and so you can go to a population, navigate to where it is on the landscape, and see. Our methodology is we try to map high, medium, and low use corridors, and so having this sort of tiered look at a population's movements allows you to make more hopefully fine-scale decisions on how to conserve or mitigate development. So it just allows planners to prioritize conservation actions by seeing this high, medium, and low use migration corridors. So in each migration comes with, you can see this button down here in the lower left. You can click that and then download the shape files associated with that migration. So you can pull in these GIS data and then use it in your own spatial planning software. That's kind of the main feature of this atlas that we believe is hopefully going to make an impact. And each migration is also accompanied by a fact sheet published through CMS. So this summarizes the migration. It summarizes current threats to that population, as well as details about the study, how the data was collected, and who the data providers were for that population. And so this example I've kind of been using of the saiga in Kazakhstan. We actually also have pre and post movement data from we also have pre and post construction movement data. So this railroad here was built in 2015, and it bisects the migratory range of this population of saiga. So you can see the orange lines are movement data collected from before the railroad went in, and the purple lines show this much more restricted migratory range after that railroad went in. And so this is an example of where we had movement data on this population, really good movement data before this big infrastructure project, but it just wasn't easily accessible or available to the Ministry of the Environment and to government planning agencies for this project. So this is the kind of information that the Atlas wants to capture and hopefully use to avoid similar issues in the future. And this has actually been a case study that's been used in Kazakhstan to inform other infrastructure projects that are happening right now. So looking ahead, we have 22 more corridor maps in the pipeline that we're currently mapping, and these will be published throughout this year. We also aim to map lost migrations and incorporate traditional ecological knowledge to characterize where migrations may have occurred on the landscape in the past before human development and other things may have caused them to become lost or to shift. And ultimately, our goal is to use these maps to bridge science with policy. We believe that maps and this atlas provide really clear, concrete, and tangible illustrations of where conservation action is needed for this very specific issue, which is ungulate migration. And to that end, we're hoping to connect with third-party web applications through our API and make data sharing a lot more easy, a lot easier. So being able to move this movement data directly into other GIS platforms. And we're also looking to just build more awareness that this tool exists, that this is an ongoing effort that's intended to be comprehensive. So with that, we'd love to thank partners and funders for this project. And if there's time, I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you so much for that talk. So much of what you talked about is feeding into or relates to a lot of conversations that we're having at WILDLABS right now about how we go about integrating animal movement data into policy and into action and creating data standards and whatnot. So it's very, very timely. And I love graphical representation of movement data because that's the best way for me to understand how any of it actually makes sense in the real world. My question for you, especially with those sort of goals you mentioned about building more awareness and connecting to like third-party applications. What would you say is like the best way for people to get involved, whether it be like through building awareness or if it's possible for people to like share their data with you? What do you want people to sort of take away action-wise?
Yeah. Yes, that's a great question. I think sort of the bread and butter is just building this atlas and having it be increasingly comprehensive and representative of different species around the world. So data sharing is a great way if you have movement data that you want us to analyze for migratory behavior, or we're also offering trainings on our methodology. So how to use the program that we use to analyze these migrations. So we're also happy to train people and then have them like create the map. And we always share authorship on our fact sheets, and any products, the primary authors are the data providers. So we try to be really transparent and share ownership with that. So data sharing is great if you are aware of migrations in the landscape where you live. Even if we didn't have data, we could still look at ways to characterize them based on expert knowledge and observations. That's something that we're looking to do because we know that monitoring efforts are really expensive and can take a long time to like get started. So we can work on building maps based on expert knowledge. And then we're looking to start some sort of mini campaigns this year where we like look at a local landscape. Is there a migration? Who are the stakeholders? How can we get this information out to different levels, people that actually live there, people that have decision-making power with infrastructure. So we're looking to run some campaigns around specific migrations. So if you think that there was a need in your area, we could definitely explore how to do that.
Amazing. Thank you so much. I'm gonna send you over to the chat as questions roll through. And we got a shout out from Talia for your help in organizing our movement session at COP16. Thank you so much, Janey.